Hi everybody, Mark Michaels here with Cutting Horse Central, and we're joined here today by Kirby Smith from Grand Island, Nebraska.
Correct.
Right, okay, well, Kirby, thanks for stopping by with us here today. We just thought we'd talk to him a little bit and let you all get to know him a little bit more. So the cliche thing is, how did you first get hooked on cutting? I mean, everybody's got a story. What's your story there?
Well, I think my story is unique. We were ropers, and we did it for fun at the house, and my kids were young, 8 and 10 years old, and a friend of ours from Lincoln, Nebraska called and said they had a really nice little horse for my son to start heeling on. So we drove to Lincoln, Nebraska on a Sunday, and it's this tiny little horse, and kind of surprised us, but gentle, 15-year-old, and we bought him for $3,500, and they gave us a cutting sap, okay?
Really?
But we brought him home, followed some steers with him. When we got the papers, he was a son of Doc's Hickory.
Oh.
And we looked it up, and he'd won $15,000. And so we thought, hey, this is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. So we put 40 roping steers in the end of this 200 by 300 roping pen, rope and saddle on the horse, and drove a steer out. I fell off twice that day. It was hilarious. But we went to town, bought the Western Horseman book on cutting, kind of read it, and about 3 months later went to Broken Bow, Nebraska to the 2000 NCHA days. I entered the rookie class, actually won it on that horse.
Wow.
But a gentleman by the name of Jerry Lina Weaver was at that cutting.
Right.
And Jerry was a top 15 non-pro. And he said, son, if you're going to do this, you need a little better horse.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, they invited us down to their place in Leavenworth, Kansas. And he had a friend in North Carolina had bought a horse called J-Bar Tomahawk, and it was too much horse for. And he was a big, stout, 15 two-hand gelding. Mm-hmm. And so went down there, and he's too much horse for me. And I looked at Jerry and said, what do I do? And he said, buy it. And Jerry was the kind of guy that he was no fooling around, and you trusted him.
Yeah.
I didn't know the man at the time,
right.
But I bought this Tomahawk horse, and from there on, it was lights out.
Yeah. So since then, obviously, you've been to a lot of different cutting. Tell us about a cutting that kind of stands out, that was memorable to you.
One of the most memorable was in Columbia, Missouri. The Eastern Missouri Cutting Horse Association used to have a deal called the All-American Amateur Tournament.
Yep.
And boy, it was neat. It was a 500 rider, a 2,000, and a 50 non-pro.
Right.
And it was 2 goes and a finals, and it was all set up. They had trainers there to help you. You didn't have to worry about help. But if you did well, you got a trophy, a saddle, a buckle, and it was really, and pretty good cash actually, if you want to know the truth. But it was all about those amateurs and to get them going. And that was probably one of my first true wins. And you know, it was just a really neat deal. They had a chuck wagon dinner that night.
Right.
You know, it was a really fun cutting to go to.
Yeah. So you talked about the first horse. Can you tell us about maybe another horse that you've owned over the years that kind of stands out?
Well, Sanjo Sneaker was the one my oldest son rode all through the youth, 100 and some points, got into the Hall of Fame. Did real well at the high school finals with him. He did top 10 in the youth down here at the scholarship cutting. That was a great, cow horse.
Yeah. So what about, you're from up in the northwest. How are cuttings different up there compared to the cuttings down here?
You know, it's a little more social. Okay, so I know the first time I went to Stephenville, it was kind of like people came in and showed in the open and then left, and then there was kind of a rotation, and that was something I wasn't used to. Yeah. And when you came down by yourself, you kind of panicked because you didn't know who was going to be there to help you. But there were some great people left to help me. Like I have 2 partners, and we produced 3 shows in Kearney, Nebraska. One of them being the Shania Randall Memorial Cutting over Memorial Day weekend. That's been a really nice youth event.
Yep.
And the Todd and Susie, bless their hearts, have really done a nice job and really reward the youth for coming.
Right.
But that one, we always have a dinner and awards for the kids. And, it's not to use the term over and over, but it is a cutting family up there. And people really get together. We all have our spats, and people get mad at the cows and that deal. But some of the ranch cuttings we used to go to, and I'd like to see the NCHA make it easier to produce those shows.
Yeah.
But those were 15, 20 miles back on sand roads. You were there for the weekend. phenomenal cattle.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean
Yeah.
phenomenal cattle. And so we'd get done cutting, and you were there, so everybody cooked together.
So Kirby, it's almost dinner time here. If you could pick anybody, past or present, trainer, owner, whatever, who would you like to sit down with one time and have dinner and pick their brain?
So you asked me about special cuttings, and in Grand Island we had Bill Freeman scholarship cutting. Time flies. 10 years ago,
Yep.
I'm going to say close to that time frame. And Bill came up, gave a 2-day clinic for the kids. It was the first 10-point youth class outside of Texas.
Wow.
And that was real special. So getting to meet Bill and his theories, et cetera, that was really neat. If you ask me who I could meet, probably the same as everybody, I'd like to meet Buster Welch.
Yeah.
I think he's a cattleman. He understands how horses move, how cattle move. Getting his theories would be really, really interesting.
Yeah. So you're in the feedlot business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm a feedlot nutritionist, which is a pretty broad term.
Right.
Okay. So I tell people, they ask me, really, what do you do? And we balance rations, make sure everything's sound, et cetera, that way. But my clients, customers, have me come to their feed yard for a day. Most of them want me there twice a month, which I've had most of these customers for 30 years,
really?
So it's interesting. But so at the end of the day, we sit down and talk about what we're doing and where there are things that we could do better. So I'm kind of an operations efficiency person. Right. So we talk about how to feed the cattle more efficiently, not in cost to gain conversion. That's always our job.
Sure.
But can we get it delivered quicker? Can we do it with less people? And at the end of the day, there's a group of us sit down and come up with if there's a problem that day, with a solution, and that solution is usually derived that day, and it's with a group of people, and no one person really controls it all. So,
right. Yeah. So what did kind of make you decide to run for VP? How did you get into this position?
Well, a couple years ago, 4 years ago, when my grandson was born, my daughter-in-law and oldest son were big in the youth. Mm-hmm. Came down here and participated in the youth stuff. Showed in the Derby. Yeah. Both of them have. Really, really enjoyed youth cutting. Mm-hmm. and that. And when my grandson was born, she Facebooks, which everybody does now, you know. And she said, I can't wait for Houston, my grandson, to be able to do this. And I said, wow, Lindsay, I don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years. Right. And she kind of got upset with me, and she said, cutting's going to be here. And I said, well, I don't know what the face of it's going to be, though. Sure. And so that's been in the back of my mind. And then a couple individuals said, hey, Kirby, we know what you do in your business. We like how you produce shows. Mm-hmm. Would you consider this? And, the timing was okay for me. I have a lot of young guys that work for me. Mm-hmm. So I can I'm not done working. Sure. Okay. Sure. But I can kind of commit the time to this. And so I thought it was a chance to maybe bring a fresh look in to things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, sounds good. Well, Kirby, thanks very much for stopping by.
Yeah.
Good
Mark,
luck with the election. Yeah, and
appreciate
good luck.
Okay,
thank you.